Hi, I'm Madison and welcome back to my channel. Today I have the top 10 romances of 2023 so far. So this year's actually been quite a slow reading year for me. So when I was compiling my top 10, it really stood out to me that these were books that I have absolutely adored this year that have made a huge impact on me, and as a result, I was like, let's let everyone else know what the top 10 spicy books are so far. So one of the first books I'm going to mention is actually going to be the book that literally just came out, and that is Minx by Sophie Lark. This is one of Sophie's standalone novels, and you are following Ramses and Blake. Now, Blake is one of the highest paid escorts in New York City. You know, basically, for her to be an escort, it's like her own country club. Men pay millions of dollars to spend one night with her, whether it's sexual or not, and she has like a roster of all the most wealthiest men. Ramses ends up, you know, he's one of the top financial bros in New York City. Like, he is the top of the top, and when he ends up coming across Blake one night, he is basically enraptured by her. He is so enchanted by this woman, and he's intrigued by her. He wants to figure Blake out because Blake is very elusive. And so he ends up basically, you know, spending $3 million to spend one night with her. And the two of them end up basically, you know, starting up a romance. And it's really amazing because it delves into so much more than just her being an escort, even though that is, you know, her primary, you know, job. She actually uses herself, like her connections and the men that she's with, to actually be a financial investor. And so she makes little baby investments off the information, this is technically illegal, off the information that she learns from her clients and like being in bed with them and listening in on their phone calls. There is primarily in this pet play is a massive part of it, which I know is like not a lot of people's kinks, but it actually was really interesting to read about because it's also a sort of catharsis for the two of them. There was just such great spicy scenes in this, but also really great caretaking scenes as well, which was really interesting to see kind of that whole aspect of it. Do know that if you do have any trigger warnings for panic attacks are present in this book, and it is on page, so do know that. Then we've got Flawless by Elsie Silva. This book I really wanted to mention is because it actually got me out of a massive reading slump earlier this year. I was struggling every single book I was picking up. I wasn't really enjoying. They were 3 stars, 2 stars. I was DNFing books, and then one day I was like, whatever, I'll pick up this book. I've kind of seen it around, and I fell in love with it. So Flawless is the first book in the Chestnut Spring series, which is basically a Canadian cowboy small town romance series. Very unique. I know, Canadian small town cowboys. I didn't even know they had cowboys in Canada, but that's also me being Australian. But you're following Rhett and Summer. Now, Rhett is a professional bull rider. He's like in his mid to late 30s. He's kind of supposed to be getting near retirement, and he just had like this bull riding competition where he said some things that made a lot of his sponsors upset, and that's the fact that Rhett hates milk. And so Summer works for his PR company. She is a lawyer there, and she ends up being tasked with looking after Rhett for the summer until his next tournament so that he doesn't lose any more sponsors for the company and for himself. And so Rhett's kind of pissed that he's got a babysitter, especially this babysitter who is this hot, young, like hotshot lawyer. And so what ends up happening is she ends up moving in with him at his family's farm and spending the time together, and it's like a forced proximity romance. And it's really funny because Summer actually used to have photos of like posters of Rhett on her like walls when she was like a teenager. Like, he was like this massive heartthrob, and so there's also like a whole plot line in this, which is just absolutely adorable. Probably like this definitely isn't as spicy as Minx was, but it's a good kind of mixture of like rom-com and spice, which you don't always get when you come to small town romances. I feel like a lot of times nowadays when it comes to small town romances, they end up being very much like suspense focused and like kind of serious and emotional, but Elsie puts a lot of fun and banter into her books. Then we've got Black Ties and White Lies by Kat Singleton. This book is like one of my favorite billionaire romances I've read, and the reason for that is just because Kat Singleton literally took every single billionaire romance trope, like any kind of scene that you could ever imagine, and shoved it right into this book. So you got everything. Like, if you love the most extravagant billionaires who just spends all of his money on the women to no avail, this is the book for you. Like, literally, this man at one point, okay, let me explain what the book is about first. So you've got Beck and Margot. Margot is just working her little day job, Jay chillin', and then she gets called into the brand new CEO's office because her company was recently bought. And she's like, oh, I don't know why the CEO wants to see me. Weird. Walks into the room. Lo and behold, the CEO, it turns out, is her ex-boyfriend's older brother. And she goes, what are you doing here? Why did you buy my company? He goes, well, you weren't picking up the phone. She goes, what do you mean? He goes, I was trying to contact you. I emailed you, texted you, called you. You weren't picking up. She goes, okay. He's like, so I bought your company so I could become your CEO and set up a meeting with you so you could not avoid me. And she goes, are you serious right now? He goes, 100%, 100%. This man spent billions of dollars to buy a company just to talk to the woman. Like, that's how the book starts. That's the first, chapter. And so it turns out that Beck is in need of a fake fiance, basically, and he asks Margot to be his fake fiance, and he has all these reasons, compensation as to the reasons why she should say yes. And Margot does say yes, even though initially she does say no because Beck is her cheating ex's older brother. She's like, why would I say yes to you? Why are you even asking me? This makes no sense. But she does say yes because the opportunity is too good to pass up. And it was so good. Obviously they live in the same apartment in New York City. It's forced proximity. He ends up taking her out to buy brand new clothes. When they go and fly, she's like, yeah, I'll get a flight back. And he goes, no, I come in my private jet. And she goes, I can just fly regular. And he goes, you're my fake wife. My fake wife does not fly economy. My fake wife flies only on private jets. And I was like, why can't I be someone's fake wife? And so I absolutely adored the two of them together so much. It was so much fun. This was such a fun, campy book. If you love billionaires, catnip. Speaking of billionaires, I have to talk of King of Pride by Anna Huang. Did someone say gentleman hero? Oh my god. This book is very unique because this book follows Kai and Isabella. Now Kai Young is, everyone's like, not like other girls. Well, Kai Young is not like other heroes, okay? Because Kai Young is a gentleman. He is 100%. He's this sweet and proper, by the book guy, okay? And then you've got Isabella, who is literally hot mess express, okay? She is fun, she's quirky, she's out there, her hair is dyed purple, okay? And so Kai Young is a billionaire and he is currently working for his parents' corporation. He's supposed to become the next CEO until his mum ends up stepping down and invoking a CEO vote, and now Kai has to compete with other people in order to actually become the CEO. So he's got a lot of pressure on him. Then you've got Isabella. She's kind of trying to make ends meet. Shit's not really working out for her, but she's an aspiring author, but she's got massive writer's block. And the two of them know each other because they've got mutual friends and because Kai is always at the Valhalla Club, which is this exclusive Manhattan society club, and Isabella is one of the bartenders there. And so the two of them end up starting up a forbidden romance because it's forbidden for members of the Valhalla Club to be in relationships with the employees of the Valhalla Club. And so they end up secretly dating and they're opposites attract, and it's such a great romance. And what's really cool is this entire series is based off the 7 deadly sins. And so Kai's sin is pride, and there's a lot of that in this book. So if you are someone who's a big fan of the 7 deadly sins, you would definitely love this book because Anna really weaved it in this time around to kind of show how your pride can be your downfall. You will not regret reading this. Also, there's an entire scene in this where he, how do I put this delicately? He gives her lady head while she has to read a passage from a book that he gave her. So she has to read the book and get through the whole thing, which is the whole thing. Also, Kai translates books into Latin in his free time for fun. And so she ends up getting him a dragon shifter, or a dinosaur shifter porn book, and gives it to him to translate into Latin, which is also hilarious. Then we've got a novella, and that is Mother's Day In by liche. I adore liche with my whole ass, okay? If you are someone who is ever stuck in a reading slump and you want a short and quick book to read just to kind of get you out of it, you need to be reading liche because she's got a bunch of novellas. But Mother's Day In is her Mother's Day spicy novella following Olivia and Theo. There's a 20-year age gap between the two of them. Olivia is a single mom. She's been bringing her daughter to the country club swimming pool for years now, and Theo was one of the lifeguards there, and he is one of the ones who helped her daughter learn how to swim. A year ago, Theo left. Olivia hasn't seen him since, even though they both had this sort of attraction, but Olivia was like, oh, I could never go with a guy who's 20 years younger than me. Flash forward to Mother's Day. she ends up booking a weekend at this inn as like a getaway for herself, and not knowing that Theo's parents actually own this inn. And so when that ends up happening, they end up crossing paths again, and it all explodes from there, basically. I don't want to give it away because it's like only 100 pages, but there is really great spicy scenes in this, and the main kink in this book is, which one is it? Oh, the breeding kink. Breeding kink is the main kink in this one. Each of her novellas has a specific kink that it focuses in on, and for this one it is the breeding kink, which I actually did not mind at all, especially because like that is a kink that I'm not the biggest fan of most of the time, but when it was in this book I actually really did enjoy it. And so that also gives you like a bit of a plus, because I love when I find an author who uses like a trope or a kink in a book that I think I don't like, and then I read their book and I'm like, oh my god, like actually this is really good. Like it was the same thing with Minx and the Pet Play. I was like, oh my god, like this is actually really fun. Same thing with the breeding kink and Mother's Day Inn. Really great spicy scenes in there. Also really great spicy massaging scene if you're looking for something like that. Then we have Forbidden Hearts by Corinne Michaels. As you guys know, I adore the crap out of Corinne Michaels. I had to put her on this list because I finally can, because this is Corinne Michaels' spiciest book that she's written to date. So this is Asher and Phoebe's romance. This is an age gap, single dad, nanny romance. Phoebe is a master's student. She's studying peach pathology, and she ends up coming home for the summer due to unforeseen circumstances. And when she gets home, her dad ends up asking if she will be the nanny for one of his like employees. And she agrees only because this employee's daughter is deaf, and so she needs a nanny who is able to use ASL, which Phoebe does know. And so Phoebe agrees, and the guy ends up being Asher. Now Asher doesn't really like Phoebe. The reason why Asher doesn't like Phoebe is because he's known Phoebe like while she was growing up, and he just thinks that she's super immature and doesn't trust her. Obviously when he sees Phoebe again for the first time, he's like, oh, like she's kind of gotten hot now, this is weird. And so he's also like, this is my boss's daughter, like she's also now my nanny, like there's no way I could ever get with her. And Phoebe's always had a penchant for older men, and obviously she's very attracted to Ash off the bat, and so it's their romance. It is quite emotional, but it is also really hilarious and super fun, and it's like a quintessential like small town romance vibe. The two of them are like consistently fighting their attraction. There's a lot of back and forth, a lot of mutual planning that goes on in this. Not only that, but Corinne did a really great job with like, sometimes I feel like when it's a single parent romance, the child can sometimes be 50-50, and like how they play out in a book, it can feel kind of forced. But the way that Phoebe and his daughter were together was so adorable, and it was so cute, and I was just like living for it the entire time. Also the way that Asher like just became so obsessed and so just like enamored with Phoebe as well. Like he was a total marshmallow for her. He was this grumpy asshole who turned into such a marshmallow for her, and I lived for it. Lived for that. Then, keeping in the same vein, we've got Runaway Love by Melanie Harlow. I love this. Honestly, I think one of my favorite tropes, which is not in books enough, is the runaway bride trope. I love a good runaway bride. They are just amazing. So you've got Veronica and you've got Austen. Now, Ronnie, at the very start of this book, is about to walk down the aisle and get to the altar and marry her fiancé, until 2 hours beforehand she finds out he was cheating on her. And she goes, well, that's not gonna happen, kicks him in the face and runs away from the wedding. Only problem is, Ronnie has nothing to her name. Her fiancé controlled all of her assets, all of her money, owned the place that they lived in, so she's sitting there in her wedding dress in this diner in this small town like, I really don't know what I'm going to do with my life. Ends up finding out there's a single dad who needs a nanny for the summer to look after his 2 kids, and is like, oh, perfect, I'll apply for that. Except for the fact that Ronnie rocks up to his place in her wedding dress looking like an absolute crazy woman with 0 qualifications, and Austen's like, yeah, no, not gonna hire you. Except for the fact that Austen's younger sister is very hell-bent on getting him to hire Veronica, because Austen literally has no other options. So Austen ends up hiring her on like a trial basis, but the two of them, the night before he does hire her, end up sharing a kiss. And so he's like, if I'm gonna hire you, that like you and I, like it has to be completely platonic, like we cannot like cross the lines, like you now work for me. And so a lot of the book spends between the two of them kind of fighting this attraction that they've had since the very beginning. And I absolutely adored the crap out of it. Melanie Harlow is really good in my opinion. I've read about 3 books from her at this point, and one of the things that really stands out to me is how she manages to really focus on sexual tension in her books. So even before any of the spicy scenes even happen, she has all these scenes that really build up between everyone, where you're just like, palpably feeling the sexual tension between them, like so much that you could cut it with a knife. Like she is so good at just building those moments that you are just like, almost, and it's such a talent of hers. Not only that, but this also falls into the camp of small town rom-coms, which, like I was saying, not a lot of authors are doing when it comes to small town romances. She's really great at having her banter, her characters like mess around with each other, just be messy human beings. Like Ronnie is trying to figure out her life, and things really aren't going well for her. Her fiance is still a dickhead, and Austen's there, and he's like this amazing man, and the two of them together, like he's such a total grump, and she's just trying to be sunshiny as well at the same time. So you have all the amazing like kind of tropes going on in this book, and I'm so excited for the rest of the series because you get to meet all of like Austen's siblings and his friends who the rest of the series is going to be following, and they are also a time and a half. Then we have the Boys of Bellrose series by Tate James and Jam and Eve. This is a why choose mafia rockstar romance series. There are 4 books in it. I'm just going to chuck them all together, especially if you're a spicy romance lover and you have not read Tate James. I don't know what you're doing with your life. Tate James is one of my favorite authors of all time, and I love her to death. But no, for reals, I absolutely adored this series. I read it all in like, I binged through the first 3 books in like 3 days. Like it was not even like in 2 days. I don't even know how quickly I read through Tate James's books at this point. It is ridiculous. But this series follows Billy Bellrose. And when the book starts off, she is at her job. She's about to be homeless, has really no money, and ends up seeing someone get murdered at her waitressing gig. And so she's on the run trying to avoid being, you know, killed for seeing people kill people. And when she's on the run, she runs to a nightclub and runs into this guy. And this guy ends up offering her like a safe haven for the night. Little does she know is that this guy, Rhett, is actually part of the band Bellrose. And the reason why Billy doesn't want to interact with Bellrose is because Jace is the lead singer of Bellrose and created it, and he is her ex from when she was in high school. And so the two of them are currently like intense enemies. Like he absolutely hates her. The problem is Billy has nowhere else to go. If she doesn't find a way to get out of town, she will be murdered by the mafia gang that is after her. And so reluctantly, Rhett ends up getting Jace to agree to let Billy like hide out on their tour bus until they get to New York City, where she will then like escape and like make a whole new identity for herself. And so it's Billy's romance with the 3 guys who are in Bellrose, who is Rhett, Jace, and also Grayson, and then also one of the guys in the mafia who is Angelo. It is a really fun series. What I really like about it is the fact the first book does focus more on the rock star aspect of it, but as each book goes on, it gets more and more into like the criminal underworld and mafia part of it all, and it gets like really nitty gritty, and it gets very dangerous. People are dying, people are getting shot. Like it's like who is who can you trust? Like how is everything kind of working out? Who are the boys of Bellrose? Like are these guys like who they say they are? Like how does everything like come back to Billy? Why is Billy at the center of all these different things that are going on? And it's really cool to kind of like try and piece it all together, especially because Tate James is really great at like her mind fuckery, where she makes you think one thing and it ends up being another, especially to the extent that in the 3rd book of this series, I was genuinely like gobsmacked by like everything that went down in it. Like I did not see like any of it coming, and it's very hard to surprise me anymore when it comes to books, so that did stand out to me. Obviously, because it's an RH, you've got 1 girl and 4 guys, you do have some delicious spicy scenes that do go on. Of course, you know, as per normal, the 4th book does round it out with the delicious group scene between everyone. We've also got some nice Jacquot ladders included in this book too, so you know, you really can't go wrong with a Tate James book. She really knows how to write some delicious spicy scenes, not just one-on-ones, but with everyone kind of involved. Whether it's an MFN scene or like an MMF scene, like all that kind of stuff. Like she'll put everything into it. She's really got no holds barred, and it's really fun in that extent, especially if you're a fan of public play as well. She does use a lot of that in her books. Second to last, we've got The Graham Effect by Elle Kennedy. I'm a bit cheating here by saying it's my top 10 romances so far because this book doesn't come out until October 31st. But you know what? It's my list, so I can put it on as much as I want. And also, the scenes in this were so good because Elle Kennedy is a queen. Can we just admit that? So in The Graham Effect, you're following Gigi Graham. Now this is a spin-off of The Deal by Elle Kennedy. So this is actually 2nd generation. You're following the kid of the couple from the deal, but you don't have to read that to like know anything about this book. They're very much disconnected. But Gigi Graham obviously is Garrett Graham's daughter, and Garrett is this massive hockey player, like one of the top hockey players in the entirety of the United States. And Gigi is currently at Bree University, and she's on the women's hockey team, and her goal in life, her like aspiration, is to join Team USA and actually compete at the Olympics. And so that's what she's currently trying to do. Then you've got Ryder. Now Ryder has just transferred to Bree University to the men's hockey team there reluctantly, because his school ended up being like torn down, and they ended up merging the men's hockey team from that rival school with Bree University. So there's a lot of like animosity on the hockey team right now because the two rival schools have come together into one hockey team. And Ryder, you know, his entire life is hockey, and he wants to become the best of the best, and he really admires Garrett Graham, who is Gigi's father. The only problem is that Gigi's father doesn't like Ryder, because Ryder has some iffy things in his past. And so when Ryder ends up overhearing Gigi like trying to improve on the ice because Team USA said that she has some things to improve upon, in return she has to then kind of talk him up to her dad, so that her dad ends up having a better opinion of Ryder, so that Ryder can actually be one of the coaches at Garrett Graham's summer camp. And so the two of them end up entering into this agreement. It quickly turns from being like this like agreement to like friends with benefits relationship, secret romance. They're like together, they're secretly like friends with benefits, they're secret friends with benefits especially. And it's the funniest thing because one of their friends the entire time knows that it's going on and has to keep covering for them when they like go and sneak off to do like their spicy times, and it is the funniest thing in the entire world. This doesn't have a third act breakup. It's super healthy, the relationship between them, and they have like no miscommunication. Like there are times where like things are miscommunicated, but they're very quick to like remedy that and like talk through it, which really did stand out to me as well. I absolutely adored it. It was a riot. And then last but not least, the last book I have for this is going to be the Buns series by Bree, which is a little bit iffy because this one does have a bit of a fantastical element to it. So this series is a urban paranormal romance series. It's a weird one to explain. The way this world works is that you have people with magical powers and people who don't, and the people who have magic have like basically mates, and your mates are through your blood. Like you're literally like through your blood, like you are mated to these people, and those are the people who you are bonded to. So you've got your bonds, and when you have a full bonded group, you are even more powered up, and your powers like reach their next potential. So you're following Ollie, and she's actually been on the run for the last like 15 years basically from her bonded men. And when the book starts off, she ends up being captured by one of them and forced to attend university to kind of learn her powers and to be around her bonded men, even though she's on the run and is afraid that if she's now like captured, that the people that she was on the run from will come and kill her. And so that's kind of all you know. It's very much kind of like, it keeps you in the dark for the book as to like why she's on the run, who's trying to kill her, why they're trying to kill her, why she's like kind of not like interacted with her bonded men all these years. It is a why choose romance. You've got North and Nox Draven, who have like shadow magic. Then you've got Griffin, who is basically kind of like a mind reader telepath who can like also detect lies. Then you've got Gabe, and he is our little shifter who is absolutely adorable. And then you've got Atlas, and his power is basically like he's Superman basically. He has like super strength and like invulnerability and things like that. And so you don't know what anything is going on with Ollie at the moment. You don't know why she's, you know, connected to all of these bonded men, especially because these 5 men are some of the most powerful men of this entire world as well. And it's such a great series. I read all 7 books in 7 days, which does tell you a lot. Like I absolutely binged through it. They are my favorite books of this entire year, hands down. I would make it my entire personality after like the Tate James books, basically, if I could, because I'm such a huge fan of Why Choose, and it's a slow burn one. There are 6 books in this series. Each book gets better and better and better. My favorite book in this series is book 5. And what's really interesting is kind of how you get to know each of the different guys, and they all change with the books. And I really do want to say like this book does change. It reminds me of the Throne of Glass series, and the idea of like it starts off with the first 2 books being something, but then as you learn more and more about what the heroine is hiding, the entire plot of the series changes, and it turns into this like kind kind of massive all-out war. So I think it also, I mean, I've only read the first book in the ᴛᴏᴏ series, but it also has a lot of aspects to it that is very reminiscent of the ᴛᴏᴏ series, but you make it wide choose and spicy. And trust me, this series gets very spicy. I feel like books 1 and 2, the spice is like, it's there, there's not too much going on, and then book 3 happens and they really ramp it the hell up, and it's just spicy times and spicy times in between all the blood and murder and fighting and death. And you know, that's just a recipe for success at the end of the day. So yeah, those are my top 10 spicy romances of 2023 so far. Let me know what one of yours is. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click the button down below. If you want to see more of me, please go to my channel. And until next time, thanks so much everyone. Bye bye.